A power outage in the summer is a minor inconvenience, but flip the calendar to winter and the situation changes completely. The longer it drags on, the worse it gets. Most households keep an electric space heater tucked away somewhere, and the moment the grid fails, that unit becomes dead weight because running one of them pulls roughly 1,500 watts out of the wall. A gas furnace does not solve it either, even with a transfer switch in place, because the blower fan still needs electricity to push air through the ducts, drawing around 400 watts, and over a full day that adds up to several kilowatts of energy. That is a number most residential backup systems simply cannot sustain. $10,000 in battery banks and rooftop solar panels is not a realistic investment for most people, which is exactly why having a set of heating methods that demand zero electricity matters. Everything covered here moves from the most personal and immediate options outward to the most powerful room-level solutions. Your own body is the first line of defense against cold. In a situation without power, the goal is to hold on to as much of the heat your body produces as possible. Hands, feet, head, and neck, the body's extremities, are where heat escapes the fastest. Once your hands and feet go cold, carrying out even basic tasks becomes a real struggle. Wool socks, insulated gloves, and neck gaiters cover the baseline, but chemical hand warmers are one of the most underestimated supplies a household can stock. Disposable iron oxidation warmers need nothing more than air to activate, and once they do, they deliver heat for several hours straight with no batteries, no charging, no moving parts. Reusable sodium acetate warmers work differently, triggered by a simple touch and recharged by dropping them in hot water. Both types cost almost nothing, and they take up hardly any space at all. Battery-powered gloves and heated insoles are worth looking at too. Recharging a 10,000 milliamp hour power bank uses only a fraction of the energy a standard space heater draws. Heated blankets and wearable jackets operate on that same low-draw principle. Layering is the other technique that actually works. It is built on 3 layers, and each one does a specific job. Against the skin, you put a moisture-wicking base layer to pull sweat away. Over that goes wool or fleece to trap warm air close to the body, and the outer shell just needs to be windproof, not necessarily heavy. Mylar emergency blankets look flimsy, but emergency medical services crews and fire departments carry professional-grade versions of them for a reason. They do not add heat on their own. Instead, they bounce the infrared radiation your body emits right back towards you, and that alone slows heat loss enough to matter. Wrap one around a sleeping bag or tuck it under a blanket, and it becomes genuinely useful, especially in extreme cold. A pack of 10 costs just a few dollars. Once personal warmth is handled, the next decision is which room to use. In a grid-down situation, heating an entire house with backup methods is not practical. Pick the smallest interior room available. Ideally, that means a bedroom near the center of the house, away from exterior walls where cold seeps in fastest. Before central heating, households lived and slept through winter in a single small room. That principle still holds. Concentrating people and whatever heat sources you have into one tight space beats spreading everything out across a larger area every single time. A 2-person or 4-person camping tent set up right inside the bedroom adds another insulation layer around the sleeping area, and most modern tents are freestanding, so no stakes or ground anchors are needed. If you do not have a tent, a blanket fort thrown together over chairs accomplishes the same thing with no equipment. Windows are where the cold gets in, so cover them with polyethylene sheeting, heavy blankets, or thermal curtains to shut out drafts. The one exception is a south-facing window during daylight hours, because solar radiation coming through that glass can warm the room up meaningfully even when it is freezing outside. Now that the space is picked and insulated, the question becomes what to actually burn inside it. The options span a wide range, from barely noticeable warmth all the way up to serious room heating capability. Clay pot heaters with tea light candles show up constantly in preparedness circles. They are one of the most overstated options out there. Here is the thing. A single tea light candle produces roughly 80 BTU of heat, and that number does not budge whether you put it inside a clay pot, aim a fan at it, or just let it sit on a table. What the clay pot actually does is concentrate that heat into a smaller area, so sitting right next to one feels warmer, but the total energy output stays exactly the same. Put 80 BTU up against the 9,000 to 18,000 BTU a standard portable propane heater delivers, and a tea light candle amounts to about 1/200th of that. Bump the temperature of a small, well-insulated room by a degree or two, sure, but that is the ceiling, and that makes it a last resort backup, not something to count on. A step up from the clay pot setup is the Vesta Instafire, which runs on canned fuel and includes a small fan that moves the warm air around, instead of just letting it rise and escape. Testing showed it can raise a small bedroom by 6 to 7 degrees. Because it also functions as a cooker, it does more than just heat, and it can be especially useful in a grid-down situation. The higher output Vesta cans put out noticeably more heat than standard sterno-type fuel, and the extra cost is worth paying for that difference. Propane heaters jump up another level entirely, and the Mr. Heater Buddy line dominates this category for good reason. Rated for indoor use and considered safe, these units can run inside a bedroom as long as a carbon monoxide detector is in the room. They include an oxygen depletion sensor and a tip over shutoff that will automatically extinguish the flame if either condition trips. The Portable Buddy maxes out at 9,000 BTU and covers 225 square feet, while the Big Buddy pushes 18,000 BTU and covers 450 square feet. Both accept standard 1-pound propane canisters, or with an optional hose and filter, they can hook to a full 20-pound tank. And here is where propane pulls ahead for long-term stockpiling. The fuel itself does not break down. Sealed in a container, propane stays stable indefinitely. The only thing that degrades is the canister seal, not the fuel inside, which makes propane one of the most dependable things to keep in reserve for an emergency that could last weeks or longer. Kerosene heaters round out the mid-range options, and kerosene itself stores well when kept in sealed, approved containers, remaining usable for up to 5 years before moisture and oxidation start to eat at it. Adding a stabilizer once a year stretches that window further, and price-wise, kerosene lands between propane and diesel. The problem with burning kerosene indoors is that combustion produces carbon monoxide, along with the odor and moisture, and that is not something you can just ignore. No one in the household should be asleep while a kerosene heater is running, because someone needs to stay awake to monitor it and keep the space ventilated. A 10,000 BTU unit will warm a small room well enough, especially once you layer in the insulation and clothing measures from earlier. Winter Storm Uri in February 2021 made all of this real in the worst possible way. Over 4.5 million homes and businesses across Texas lost power, some for days on end, and at least 246 people died as a direct or indirect result, with independent estimates running as high as 702. Carbon monoxide poisoning accounted for more than 300 of the reported cases during that event alone, caused by people who ran cars and generators indoors just to get through the cold. That storm is exactly why off-grid heating and the right safety equipment to back it up are not ideas worth putting off. Diesel heaters sit at the top of the portable heating lineup in terms of raw output, and a unit like the Heat Flow covers around 230 square feet, which lines up with a standard bedroom. In practice, it can push that room warm enough that you end up turning it back down. The trade-off is setup time, because diesel heaters need a vented exhaust routed through a window or wall before they can run safely. That is not something to figure out in the middle of a crisis. Plan the installation and test it before you need it. Diesel fuel is generally the cheapest option, but it does not keep forever the way some people assume. Without any treatment, modern diesel starts to degrade within 6 to 12 months, and even with stabilizers, biocides, and proper seal storage in a cool, dry spot, the usable life tops out at 12 to 24 months. The National Fire Protection Association recommends rotating fuel every 1.5 to 2 years. So if diesel is part of your plan, treat it like a perishable and rotate it on a set schedule. A fireplace or wood-burning stove, if you have one, is about as reliable as off-grid heating gets during a long outage. Wood-burning stoves radiate heat from every side of the unit, which makes them more efficient than an open fireplace where a good portion of the heat shoots straight up and out the chimney, and a stove insert fitted into an existing fireplace captures even more of it. Running one of these at full output heats a 400 to 500 square foot room to the point where it becomes uncomfortable. And all you need to make it work is seasoned firewood, a clean flue, and a professional inspection before the season starts. Combustion is involved in every single method covered here. The biggest danger of an improvised heating setup is not running out of heat. It is starting a fire or filling a room with carbon monoxide, and both are completely preventable if the right equipment is already in place before the emergency hits. Carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless, which is exactly what makes it so dangerous. A carbon monoxide detector in every room where a heater runs is not optional. Combined carbon monoxide and natural gas alarms handle both hazards in one unit, and placing one in each heated room costs next to nothing compared to what is at stake. Smoke detectors need to be on every level of the home and verified as working before winter sets in. Battery-powered models stay reliable when the grid goes down. Fire extinguishers are rated by the type of fire they handle, and getting the wrong class on the wrong fire can make things worse instead of better. An ABC rated dry chemical extinguisher covers the bases for general home use. It is effective against wood and paper fires, flammable liquids like fuel or grease, and any fire involving live electrical equipment. One of those should be on every level of the house. The kitchen needs something different though. A Class K wet chemical extinguisher is designed for cooking oil and grease fires. Buy quality units and inspect them on a regular schedule. A first aid kit with burn treatment supplies, sterile dressings, and burn gel should be within reach in any room a heater occupies. Flashlights or headlamps are just as important for navigating in the dark as they are for treating an injury when there is no overhead light. Have an evacuation plan and run through it with everyone in the household. If a fire starts and you cannot put it out fast, getting out of the building is the only correct move. Keep diesel and kerosene stored outside the living space in approved containers, away from anything that could ignite. Alcohol stoves and small hiking stoves come up a lot in preparedness talk, and both are worth having, but neither one is going to heat a room. The flame size caps the output. Most of them cannot be refilled while they are lit, and a single burn runs about 20 minutes before it is done, which makes them solid for cooking, but useless for warmth. Oil lamps tell a similar story. Paraffin and kerosene wick lamps produce light and a little ambient warmth, but not enough to significantly raise room temperature. Some models can boil water or cook a small meal, which adds practical value, but their real job in a grid-down situation is keeping the room light, not keeping it warm. Both belong in a well-stocked kit, but when the temperature drops and the grid stays down, they are not the tools that keep a household comfortable. Propane heaters, diesel heaters, wood-burning stoves, and the layering and insulation measures from earlier are the ones that actually provide heat. Cold rarely announces itself as an emergency. It just keeps pressing in, hour after hour, and most winter outages stretch longer than people expect. What separates manageable discomfort from real danger usually is not one expensive system or a flashy solution. It is a handful of quiet choices made long before the lights go out. Small rooms hold heat better than big ones. Bodies stay warmer when heat is trapped close, and stored fuel beats hoping the grid comes back quickly. Those choices sound unremarkable, but they stack in your favor when the temperature keeps dropping and nothing else changes. None of this is about comfort or convenience, and it was never meant to be. The goal is staying warm enough to think clearly, move safely, and sleep without losing ground every night until power returns or help arrives. If you can keep heat where it belongs and make more of it without electricity, you have already handled the hardest part of a winter outage, and everything beyond that becomes much easier to manage.